Hey everyone, I'm Mao, and welcome to the Game Design Perspective. Okay, listen, we need to talk about this, because I think Square Enix is about to remake the wrong Final Fantasy. And before you grab your pitchforks, yes, I love Final Fantasy IX. The art style is gorgeous. The characters, I love them, they're chef's kiss. The world, the charm, I adore Final Fantasy IX with all my heart. I'm not so sure about the bug catching minigame, but you know what, give Final Fantasy IX to me in every way imaginable. I love it. It's a classic, and if you think it is the best Final Fantasy ever made, I can't blame you. Yeah, it probably is. And yeah, the rumors of a full-blown HD remake sound incredible. Give me BB in HD and I will cry. I swear, I will cry. But here's the thing, and I've been wondering lately, does it really need a remake? Because I mean, the 80-bit combat is still incredible, the storybook visuals are still stunning, you can play it right now on Switch, Xbox, PC, your toaster, whatever, it is still a beautiful experience. And if you throw on the Moguri mod on PC, literally the game's over, it's perfection. Maybe give us a remaster with some fancy bells and whistles for modern consoles, right? And call it a day, because I think it's still a phenomenal and beautiful experience. But a full-on remake, I don't know, man. Honestly, I think the original game already does what it sets out to do. But there's another Final Fantasy out there that's been completely abandoned. One that's just rotting on the shadows, while Square is over here giving pixel remasters and HD 2D remakes to everything that breathes out there. One that actually deserves a remake, not a remaster, not a port, but a full-blown remake. And let me tell you why. I believe Final Fantasy XI has everything to succeed. I love this classic Final Fantasy high fantasy flair and setting it's got to it. It's got a phenomenal story, a beautiful art direction, and an incredible job system. It still has one of the coolest job systems in any RPG I've ever seen. It's probably my favorite aspect of the game. But, and this is a big but, it's a bit more complicated than most job systems in the franchise. Let me break it down to you. You just don't pick one job. In a similar fashion to Final Fantasy V, you can choose a job and a sub-job. You have the main job, which you can level up to level 99, but you also have this sub-job that gives you extra abilities and improves stats in other ways that your main job just won't do. You can level up this sub-job all the way up to half the level of your main job. So you can imagine character builds get crazy with this. There are some OP builds that are extremely fun to play as. But the game has two main reasons that lead me to believe that the game needs a full-blown remake. Number one, it feels old. Really old. Many of its systems are sluggish. And by sluggish, I mean that your character has to sit down after an enemy encounter just to be able to recover your HP. And that is if you do not want to use any items. This wait is long. Also, progression is super slow and grindy. It's very painful to reach the fun part of the game. It could also use some hand-holding, to guide you through the game's quests and side quests. A lot of its level design could also use some improvement, and of course, it being an old MMORPG, it has a somewhat low player count compared to other MMORPGs out there that are actually doing great, especially compared to MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, which came out not that much after Final Fantasy XI. And I mean, yeah, sure, Square Enix has done a lot to improve the experience of this game. There are systems that allow you to play by yourself without the need of playing with other people. Some of the systems have been sped up in comparison to when the game was first released. But let's be honest with this, it will never be up to the standards of Final Fantasy XIV. It just can't be. The technology in which Final Fantasy XI is built on is just not there. It's much older than one used on Final Fantasy XIV. So the game, it just can't reach that standard. And that's fine. Reason number two on why it needs a full-blown remake. It's, I think, the most obvious one. Like, it is an MMORPG. We can't avoid it. Like, this game, either we like it or not, will get lost to time eventually. The servers cannot be up and running forever. They just can't. Yeah, the servers have been online now for about 20 years, which is impressive. But will they be up in 20 years from now? In 50 years from now? Like, how long will it be for them to just go down? When the light goes out, the game goes out with it. There's no actual way to preserve it. And that's why it deserves a remake. Not just to modernize it, but to preserve it. So cool. Yeah, we know now why it needs a remake. But what kind of remake does it need? What kind of remake am I even talking about here? And by now, a lot of you probably have figured out where I'm going with this. I believe the game needs an offline remake. Yes, a version that can be played entirely solo without the connection to any kind of server. A game that doesn't need a subscription, no connecting to the server, just boot it up. That's it. That's all we need from a Final Fantasy XI Remake, not an MMO. And this makes it a version that's able to be preserved. And it can be somewhat loyal to the feeling of the MMORPG that the original game actually is. And before you say, well, that's not possible, like, it's an MMORPG, how are you gonna handle that? Like, no. Well, let me stop you right there, because it is completely doable, and Square Enix has actually done this before. Dragon Quest X got one. Some of you might not know this, but Dragon Quest X never got here, and it's actually an MMORPG exclusive to Japan that was first released on the Nintendo Wii back in 2012. Just like Final Fantasy XI, you have to be online all the time. Square Enix actually released an offline remake for Dragon Quest X on the Nintendo Switch. This version of the game features the main story of the online game in it. The gameplay is a bit different because it was redesigned as a top-down RPG rather than the 3D one that the original game actually is. But the base of the RPG systems are there. It's still a version of Dragon Quest X that is able to be preserved. It's easier to access without any kind of subscription, doesn't rely on servers being up to be played, and it's perfectly enjoyable, which drives me crazy because I want to play that game, and it was just released in Japan. And no, I'm not asking that Final Fantasy XI is remade to the quality, visually and gameplay wise and all of that of Final Fantasy VII Remake or Final Fantasy XVI. Not in the visual department, not gameplay wise. The remake just needs to be something that's more manageable for the team and for the players, and something that respects the original feel of the game. An offline remake makes it easier to access. No subscriptions, available on every single platform, easier to preserve, and all of that leads into a game that has a lower scope and is easier to produce. And is not a commitment on the player. Because here's the thing with live service games and MMORPGs. They're kind of like relationships. You cannot handle more than one at a time. You can't be married to Final Fantasy XIV and date Final Fantasy XI on the side. It just doesn't work. An offline remake makes it so that Final Fantasy XI doesn't compete with Final Fantasy XIV in any way. And that would finally give Final Fantasy XI the spotlight it deserves on the series as one of the best Final Fantasy stories ever told. Alright, so how would the gameplay even work on an offline remake of this Final Fantasy game? Again, Final Fantasy XI is an MMORPG. It was designed for the ground up to work like that. That means a massive scope, huge worlds, tons of systems, and all of them crafted around a multiplayer experience. And I think the answer has been right in front of us this entire time, and it's called Xenoblade Chronicles. The more Xenoblade games I play, the more I think, like, why hasn't Final Fantasy XI done this? Xenoblade is like Monolith Soft took World of Warcraft and let you play it on your couch. Cause there's something you don't know about me. I hate playing on my desk. I have this lingering feeling that I have to work, that I'm working, and I just can't enjoy what I'm playing. That's exactly the direction Final Fantasy XI should go for. Auto attacks when you're in range, free movement during battle, abilities on cooldown, positioning that actually matters, a job system that lets you build out your own combo of skills and roles. It's a combat system that's incredibly strategic and active at the same time. Xenoblade 3 even has a class system that works incredible for something like this. It works so great and could totally carry over into Final Fantasy XI's job system. Xenoblade Chronicles is a perfect template of what a Final Fantasy XI remake should actually be. The exploration works. Side quests? Absolutely. The combat? That's the spot. The combat is the main reason why Final Fantasy XI should go the Xenoblade route. Alright, let's talk about the scope of the remake. Because Final Fantasy XI is a big game. I mean, it's huge. And yeah, that's just how MMORPGs are. Like, that's part of the appeal. They are big games. And the base game is already massive. But then you realize, like, oh no, there are a bunch of expansions out there. Not just a couple. It has expansions that have released since 2003, all the way up to 2020. That's 17 years worth of content. That's a lot. There are 11, yes, 11 expansions to Final Fantasy XI. Oh wow, that's actually kind of poetic. I never realized that 11 expansions for Final Fantasy XI. I wonder if Final Fantasy XIV will have 14 expansions by the end of its support. That'd be cool. So it's probably safe to say that it takes longer to clear my backlog than Final Fantasy XI, and probably your backlog too. So how would this work on an offline Final Fantasy XI remake? I believe the smaller expansions, like those little side stories, should be free content, like free updates, optional content and side quests. The bigger ones, the bigger expansions, the ones that could be an entire game by their own, well, you can just release them as paid DLC. And trust me, that's still cheaper than the concurrent subscription version that we have right now. Or you can split the game and its expansions into a trilogy of games like Final Fantasy XIII was. Yeah, it could work, like each part compiling a certain number of expansions. Or it could be a hybrid option like Xenoblade 2 was, right? Where you could play that DLC to Xenoblade 2, Turn of the Golden Country as a standalone game, or you could also buy it as a DLC. That works fine. This expansion is about 17 hours long according to how long to beat. Each expansion to Final Fantasy XI could be around 15 or 20 hours long. I wish I could tell you exactly how I would split the expansions up, but I didn't play every single expansion to Final Fantasy XI. But you get the idea, this remake doesn't have to be everything all at once. It can be modular. Square Enix can breathe life onto it during a certain period of time, just like the original game used to be. It can be manageable. So some of you might say, well, if you do that, you're gonna kill the original version of the game. The MMORPG is dead. But no! No, it doesn't have to be. It could actually do the opposite. Because what if the offline remake and the online version of the game fed into each other? What if you could export your character from the offline remake into the MMORPG? This means things like your job levels, armor, completed main quests. All of that could be exported into the main version of the game. Boom! You beat the story offline, you export your character, and you are instantly useful in the MMORPG. You're not that level 5 newbie wearing cardboard. You're ready to roll with the big dogs in parties and raids. Because let's be honest, getting through the early game on an MMO, it's a total slog. You have to be like 40 hours in just to get to the fun stuff that every player is actually talking about. But with an offline version, actually lets you skip all that lets you skip the grind and the onboarding of the MMORPG, and you also understand the story fully. You're getting the context and the character progression with absolutely no burnout. That's actually the best onboarding system ever. You're instantly having fun with the MMORPG. No more buying characters online as some of you did on the original game. It's a win for the online version too, in all honesty. And again, before you say like, that's too wild, Square Enix would never do that. Well, they already did. Dragon Quest X did that. The offline remake features this system where once you're done with the main game, you can export your character and job level into the online game. Sure, it's just your level, but that's enough to let you skip the grind and have fun with the online game. And that's exactly what Final Fantasy XI needs. A way to keep the online world alive while letting new players in through a completely accessible and offline door. A win for old fans, a win for newbies, and a win for preservation. Everybody wins. Except maybe my free time, because if this ever releases, like, I'm done. I'm done. You won't see me for months. Alright, so let's start wrapping this up. And let's talk about the big picture. Let's talk about how a Final Fantasy XI offline remake would help the entire franchise. First off, it'd be a return to to something that Final Fantasy has not done in a while, and that's a true return to a high fantasy setting. That classic Final Fantasy flavor that made a lot of us fall in love with Final Fantasy. And on top of that, again, Final Fantasy XI features probably the best job system in the entire franchise. Like seriously, it's so deep and flexible. And let's be honest, it's sad that we have not seen a true return to the job system since Final Fantasy XII. Final Fantasy XII released in 2006 on the PlayStation 2. That was almost 20 years ago as of the making of this video. And no, I'm not gonna count Final Fantasy XIII as a job system because that's the paradigm shift from the Fabula Nova Crystallis. That's its own thing, its own sort of revolution of the job system for Final Fantasy XIII. And to be honest, like, the job system is probably my favorite aspect of Final Fantasy as a whole. It's probably the most unique take on a class system that I've seen on an RPG ever. The job system on an offline remake would actually make it one of the best iterations of the job system ever made. You have your main job, you have your sub job, and that means you can mix and match your abilities however you want. And it's instant fun. A warrior with white mage powers, a black mage that can tank. You can dream it. And if you can dream it, you can build it. Yay! It's fun! And an offline remake would be a perfect playground for Square Enix to go nuts into trying a new take on the job system. And for everyone out there saying, no, Final Fantasy should go back to turn-based. Look, I get it. I'd love to see a new turn-based Final Fantasy II. I'm not gonna lie, yeah. But this is a new kind of action RPG. This is strategic. Position matters. And it's something that Final Fantasy hasn't actually ever done. Think less button mashy and more like Xenoblade meets Final Fantasy XII with a job system that actually lets you fuse jobs however you want. Tell me that doesn't sound incredible. And if you love Final Fantasy XII, like, you would probably agree with me, or Xenoblade. It is honestly like a perfect ground to try a new style of Final Fantasy that no one is talking about. No one expects Final Fantasy to do this. Final Fantasy loves to take unexpected routes on its games. This one is a fun one, this one is a new one, it's interesting, and could actually start a new branch of Final Fantasy games. Besides turn-based, I also want to see turn-based, guys. Don't come at me. Don't yell at me. I also want turn-based. But I also want this too. This is cool. I swear. And after Final Fantasy XVI leaned so hard into Devil May Cry territory, a game like this is like a fresh breeze for RPG fans. It's closer to Final Fantasy XII in spirit, but it has like a new spirit in it. A cool Final Fantasy XI spirit in it. And hey, remember how Final Fantasy XII was actually hated on when it first released, and now it's considered a masterpiece, and a lot of people are like, hey, it's actually one of the best Final Fantasy out there. Yes, it is one of the best Final Fantasy out there. And that could happen to Final Fantasy XI too. I think Final Fantasy XI has everything in it to succeed. We want to be remembered as one of the best Final Fantasy games ever. It's just a matter of giving it a second chance, letting players actually play it, because it was released back on the PlayStation 2 with archaic internet connectivity. When people had a hard time connecting to the internet or connecting like their consoles to the internet, and MMORPGs were not as big as they are now, and were not as easy to deal with. So of course Final Fantasy XI was sort of doomed to have a low player count. Let's just give it a second try, because right now the Final Fantasy fandom loves skipping on the number 11. It's as if people thought that after 10 goes 12, and no, there's this missing link. It's like, hey, I'm Final Fantasy XI, I'm here and I'm cool. Play me. It's nice. An offline remake could change this. A faithful, accessible version that finally gives the game the recognition it deserved when it launched. The recognition it's been deserving for 2 decades. Make 11 matter. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys.